Welcome to Moonlit Conversations with Hearts, Minds, and Families. This is episode 4. In this conversation that we're going to have tonight, we're going to be talking about money, which is kind of a taboo topic because I asked a few people for money advice and what kind of advice they would give to other people that were in similar situations. And then they all said things like, oh, this is a touchy subject. And it shouldn't be, though. I asked my husband about it, what he thought about it. And one of his big advice things was that it shouldn't be a taboo topic. It shouldn't be a taboo topic in the household. Talking to your kids about money, talking to them about what we can realistically spend money on, what we can't, because we need to save money for other things, and talking within like your outside family, like your parents, your siblings. As we get older, a lot of people like to say, no, I'm good. No, everything is fine, until like you get to that point where you don't have the security that you need, and then you kind of fall apart, and then everybody has to kind of pick up the pieces when everybody could be holding you up from, the different angles as you go. And then as a Muslim community too, we like to say we shouldn't beg. And I don't see it as begging. And I was talking to my husband about it too. And like, we don't view it as begging if you are going through a tough time and you need some support from the community, because everybody will say that they're fine. And then all of a sudden the message is like, oh, we have this family of 6 that can't make their rent. And you never know who it is because they don't want to say anything. But if it's your friend, you could help them, and you don't want to see your friend or know that they're struggling. Or even when you have to give I'm just going on a lot of topics right now. Even when you have to give your zakat, and people will give zakat to organizations that distribute it overseas before they give it to the people in the Muslim community, because people are so afraid to talk about finances and where they stand within the financial spectrum, so that we don't know who is considered miskeen that we can give, our zakat to, who is it okay to give it to. And I think that just causes more problems within the community, because we're supposed to be holding each other together, and instead we're depending on other people.
You just went so
I did. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's such a broad topic.
It is such a broad topic.
There's so many angles to it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've all been married for over 10 years. How has handling money within your family that you've created, how has that changed over the 10 years or more?
It did not change for me.
Okay, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and say how it is now, because it's been the same.
Yeah, I mean, my husband is a breadwinner and he has been earning, and I've been totally dependent on him for everything. And there are no complaints though. I mean, apart like I've lived quite comfortably, in fact, actually, alhamdulillah. The only thing that bothers is like at some point you want to own something of your own. You want to be sure that, this is, for me, it is more of proving to myself that I am capable of making money, because to me, making money is a skill that I have not attained yet. I know how to spend it. Ask me. I'll give you 101 ways, but I don't know how to make it, save it, and then double it or triple it. I think that's something that I really wish that I could do. When you ask people, what do you wish you would be able to do? I would love to double, triple my money and see, something that I earn, and then something I put forward, and then something that I spend to my heart's content, because I know that I'm making it and then I'm spending it. So that's something that I always see myself doing.
I think that's I don't want to say natural, but I feel like that's a very common need, even in people that manage their own money and have managed it, to just see it grow and to feel like it's your money that is there, and it's not. I don't know how to explain. I think you guys know what I mean.
Sometimes it symbolizes the hard work that we've done. It's not
right.
Really, because someone can give us that, but I earned it, that earning part where you feel like you sweated over it, you know? It's something that the symbol of it means more sometimes.
Right.
Because like who have well, I think all three of you have actually earned money from a very young age, I believe. If I'm wrong, just correct me. Have all three of you managed finances, paid your bills?
Yeah. I was almost 19, so I was 18 when I got my first place. So I was paying my own bills and managing everything on my own. I had my own full-time job. So it's so funny though, because I feel like I don't have a lot to offer to this conversation. I know I'll pick up as we go along, but I'm so uninterested in money. Like as long as I have enough, I'm okay. I don't really think about it very much. I think there was a lot of pressure to when you grow up, make a lot of money, do really well. And it kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. Like it didn't sit with me well. I'm like, I just don't care. As long as I have just enough, I don't really care about anything beyond that. And so when I got my first place and I was living on my own, I was with my husband. It was before we were married at that time, but I was looking at apartments and he was helping me, and I could only afford a certain amount. And he was like, no, but you can't live here. I'm like, well, I can't afford anything else. What do you mean? So from that time, even though he wasn't living there, he was like, okay, well, you take care of that. And he's like, and I'll buy your groceries and stuff. So from being very young, we learned how to communicate really well when it came to money, as far as, okay, what are you going to contribute? What am I going to have to take care of? And that has helped us a lot over the years of being able to just sit down and be like, okay, what do we have? Where is it going to go? And kind of move on. But one thing we don't do though is focus a lot on it. And we don't think much about the future beyond just basic savings and stuff. Like you said, somebody had responded when I posted it up on Instagram. They talked about like stocks. And then he said something else. He said, ETFs, and I didn't know if it was like ETFs or like I don't even know what that is. I'm like that should be something I should probably know. And those are the kinds of things that we should be looking into for the future. But it's not something that we learn. And then when you don't have a deep interest in it, it kind of just goes by you. But then, all of a sudden I'm 35. I'm like, well, now we're talking about like, okay, are we going to be in this house around retirement time? It's like time just sneaks up on you. So you do have to think about those things. And that's why I was excited that we were talking about this, but I don't know. I don't think about it a lot otherwise.
But I want to ask you, what is enough? Like all three of you, like she raised a good point. What is enough? When do you decide it is enough?
If our bills are being paid and we have just enough to do what we need to do, that's enough for me.
Yeah, the financial security that you don't feel like at any minute you're not going to have, I don't know, money for groceries or to be able to make your rent or your mortgage payment. Just the basic, like if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like to make sure that those things are being met, because the financial security is under security. And that's a really important one that people often overlook, is the financial security, especially I think in the Muslim community with the couples that get married very young, that they overlook that part. And then they end up going through, these periods where they're just financially insecure, and it causes a big strain on the relationship, and it's already strained because they're young. So
you know what, I think basic needs, that varies from person to person. Mm-hmm. And so for example, somebody might say, yeah, these are my basic needs, but that may be different. So for example, Seema, if you're having let's say you eat organic food, a lot of people can't afford that. Right. For them that would be like a luxury.
Absolutely. Right.
They can't afford vacations. They can't just go do a getaway, Mm-hmm. So that might be, living comfortably. So you have your needs and your wants met, like you're comfortable. Because I feel like we why shouldn't we have wants? Like Allah has so much. He doesn't want us to just live like, I'm not going to give you what you really want. So
Right.
like, let's say you want to go for a facial. Would it be like, oh, you know what, I have to save up for 3 months to go for a facial? Or would it be like, yeah, if I wanted it, maybe sometimes I can go.
Right.
I'm not going to spend like $400, $500 on a shopping spree, but maybe that's something that's, it's still minimal. So even if somebody lives like a minimalist, it could still be a higher standard of living versus someone else who like, so it makes a difference. And, when growing up when it came to finances, I guess it was ingrained in me, or just the culture in our home, or not in our extended family, and just watching Bollywood movies, right? Is that you're gonna get married and someone's gonna take care of you. You don't have to worry about money. So when I got married, I wasn't like, the stuff that I was doing, it was extra. It was just for fun. So so then my mom was like, no, you should get your master's. I'm like, why? And she was like, no, you may need it sometimes. You don't know what the future holds. You have to have something to fall back on. You just have to have that security. So if anything happens, you have something. So then, I went ahead and did that. But it was almost like, what, this is just extra stuff. This is just because I like the subject, or I like to do this stuff. It wasn't because I needed to. Yeah. But my husband did want me to like be in and communicate with him and like know how to pay bills too. And I was like, I don't know how to, I don't want to, you just handle everything. But I see how that is important to do, And
do you handle paying bills and stuff and manage it now, or have you ever?
No, I haven't, and I don't. But you know what? Sometimes, so I worked as well. Mm-hmm. So I worked after I got my master's. I worked. So the money that I had, it was just like I could do whatever I want with it. It wasn't contributing that much, to the household. So it was just mine. And before then, my dad paid for things, So, and then I got money, and then maybe there are certain things that I like, there's certain standards that, like I just like. And after I quit working, and then, where my money kind of dwindled, my own money, then there was a point where after some years, I didn't have anything, So we came up with a system where, okay, I'm going to give you this much money every month. And I would always exceed, not like I'm buying things that we don't need, but just with more families, I was like, we need a bigger budget. We have like more kids and everything, it's not going to be like the same budget that your mom had, when you were younger, because this, it's just so much different. So then we were budgeting, and then he was like, okay, I just want you to see how much you're spending, and so that helped me, because that made me more mindful of where my money goes. So now I had to look at the prices of things, and I'm like, okay, do I really need this or I don't? So that was a good thing that happened, even though it seemed like I was uncomfortable. So I really started to value where it was going. And I can see that, because, if I was earning money and someone else is spending all of it, I would be like, what? That's not fair. Mm-hmm. So then I started looking at things. And so I was like, okay, this isn't in my budget. I'm going to cut this out. But you know what? I don't like that. I want, and so we had a joint account. And so he would see everything that I'm buying, and I didn't like, or like my daughter might be like, oh yeah, we went to the store and mama spent $175 on groceries, right? I'm going to Sprouts, okay? So he's like, what are you buying $175 at Sprouts for, And so I don't want to have to explain that. I want to just buy whatever I want to. If I want to buy like facial cream or like serum for $200, I don't want to have to feel like, oh, I don't want to explain it to anybody, even though he might be like, oh, okay, I understand. But I just want to buy it, and I don't want anyone to question me.
That's what everybody responded on Instagram when I posed that question. I said, if you are not the main breadwinner of your household, how does that make you feel? What thoughts does that bring up? And over again, women are saying, I'm constantly one person said, like, I'm constantly home, so I just want to buy home decor. And obviously I have to run that by him all the time. And then someone said, this is a tough one for me. I was the primary before I became a stay-at-home mom, but now I feel like I have to run everything by him, even if it's a smaller purchase. And it's the autonomy. Everybody wants autonomy. And like you're a kid, and then you think, okay, when I'm an adult and I have my own family, like you feel like you're going to get to a point where you're going to have that. And then in a way you don't. And even if your husband, even if you work well together, it's not like a thing where it's like, oh, he's in charge, but that's just the way it ends up being, because they're making the money. They get to see everything coming in and going out. My husband and I had this conversation just last night, and we were like, okay, we want to have a goal for we have one credit card. And I was like, we want to bring it down to a certain amount by next year. Like, this is a goal. So what are we going to do? Because, and then he's like, well, I paid this much towards it on Friday. He's like, so I don't know why it's still so high. I'm like, all right, well, let's go through it. And he's like going through step by step what came out of the account. And I'm like, oh yeah, like in my mind, I'm only considering what I'm spending, but you're spending too. So like we're totally just like not paying attention to what the other person is doing. And then it adds up so quickly. So when you have those joint cards or accounts or whatever, you have to be talking about it and have to be aware, because, it's two people working with one sum of money, so it's like, it's hard.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, my husband, he told me, like, you spend thinking that you're getting things that are needed, and I spend thinking that I'm getting things that are needed. And at the end of the day, we both are spending, and then the spending goes up. So we need to, one at least needs to be more aware, or at least we need to communicate to each other, and it makes sense. There was this actor. She was giving an interview, and it was for a drama, and she said something which really made sense. She said that when you are the breadwinner, or when you know that you are paying towards the household expenses, then it is very natural that you question, because you are the one who's working hard and you are the one who's putting forward. So you don't feel anything when you are questioning. And because she was playing that sort of a character in the household, that she was a breadwinner for the house, she was a daughter and she was winning, and she was a breadwinner and she was behaving in a certain manner towards her family, right? That was the scene that they were discussing. And she said that when I was doing that scene, my mom, the actor's mom in real life, said, you are actually like this at home. And she was like, I was taken aback. I was like, what, mom? I'm like that. And she says, like, yeah, you tell me to turn off the lights, and you tell me why the AC was on, and you tell me this was and why that was, and you ask me, like, how come the gas bill came this much this month, and she said, for the first time I realized, like, oh my God, I'm doing this. I really am doing this. But she says it's only natural that the person who is earning is going to ask. Yes. So my question then, and that hit me, and I was like, okay, so what should the other person do? Because I think we were discussing this yesterday, and Shahnila put up a very good point, where nowadays we are torn into this whole thing. Should I? And I've struggled with this. I went from being a homemaker to being a teacher to going to school for 2 years, and I remember that every day I was just a very tired, frustrated mother. By the time I was a very happy teacher in the morning, throughout the day I was a good teacher, but by the time my kids needed me, I was just like drained out of energy and everything. And I remember, like, for 2 years, I remember the same conversation every day in the car when we used to sit together and come back home. Nobody talks. Mama does not want to hear a single word. It was a dead dead, or my car was dead silent the time we would come back from school. So these are choices. Money is such a beautiful, ugly thing that it becomes hard. It becomes hard to choose. You want money, or you want peace, or you want peaceful money, or you want to earn money peacefully. I mean, there's no one way to go about it.
No, and like you were saying too, the person who makes the money, it's just natural for them to ask. And I think it's also just natural that if you're not the one working hard, you tend to be a little more careless about it. You tend to not pay as close attention to little things. And I speak for myself when I say that. Sometimes things just kind of get overlooked or something. And like, it isn't worth it. Oh, it's like $5 here, it's $10 here. You know, it's the little things that add up over time that you just tend to not pay attention. So that goes off balance. They're paying extra close attention. You're kind of not paying attention. But then, like early on in our marriage, I had to have the conversation once I stopped working. So after my first daughter was born, we had a conversation where I was like, this sucks. This sucks that I have to talk to you about every single thing that I'm doing. And he just didn't realize he was doing it. He didn't realize he was like, every time I spoke about something that I bought, he would like pull up the app. I could see him like going up and like checking the account and stuff. And I'm like, that's so frustrating to me. You know, so he didn't realize he was doing it. And on the other hand, I was getting so bothered by it because it felt like I'm buying her formula. Like, you don't even know what goes into a grocery trip. Like, you have no idea. When he was home for a few months this year because of COVID, he got furloughed for the summer, and he saw what was happening in our grocery runs for the first time in a long time for like what I buy for a family of 5. And he's like, how is the food done already? I'm like, I know. I've been telling you for years. You know, so there is definitely so many things that go into it. And one of that is that the person who is making the money is kind of disconnected from what's going on in the house. So you're a little more careless. They're paying close attention, but they don't really realize what's needed, what's not needed. So there's a lot of things happening that have to be spoken about in order for there to be an understanding.
We're talking about people who are actually not stingy at heart. Can you imagine people who are stingy at heart?
Yeah. And I want to say that too, when I talked about it earlier, like I don't think about it much. I know that that's a privilege as far as like, I know that that's very much a privilege. I'm very grateful that I'm in a position where I don't have to think much about it. That right now we're in a situation where it's like, we do have enough and I'm not too concerned about, you know, where it goes. But also growing up, there were times where we had no money. So, and I remember being happy. I remember those weren't bad times. So I feel like it doesn't scare me. And that's what I've told him again and again when he's trying to take risks at work or when he thinks he's going to leave. I'm like, yeah, go for it. We'll figure it out. If we have to sell the house and move, we'll sell the house and move. We'll do what we have to do. I'm not concerned about where it's going to take us. I have a lot of faith in that way. You know, up until now, things have just kind of worked out. And if they don't, then we'll deal with it. But until then, like, I'm just not going to concern myself with it. And we just kind of go from there. But I do want to make note of that I understand. And I know that that is a privilege to not have to think so much about it.
Right. When I was, before we had kids, my husband and I were both working. And then when I had my first son, then I was the breadwinner of the house because we were having a lot of issues with childcare, and it's very expensive. It's very expensive to just live in Jersey as it is. And it made financial sense for us to have me be the breadwinner because I would work 3 days a week and my husband would be home with my older son, and he could still work the other days, but I was bringing home most of the money because I worked as a nurse. And the same thing that you guys were talking about, that the person who makes the money will always question about where the money goes. And we had to have like those conversations about the same thing that Seema was saying, that it made him feel uncomfortable if I questioned anything or if I asked, but it wasn't coming from a place of malice. It was more of, I'm mentally tallying what we have because when payday comes, I have to know, and do I have to pick up an extra shift? Do I have to do this or that to compensate for the, extra expenses in the house or whatnot? And I mean, luckily I worked as a nurse, so I could just pick up extra shifts if I needed to. But as we've been married longer, then the financial dynamics have changed in that now he's the breadwinner of the family. Up until COVID, I was working just weekends, and that was just to like pay down credit card debt that we incurred when we had the twins, because I wasn't working when we had the twins, and we just put a lot of stuff on credit card debt. So I've been working, paying that off, and that's basically where most of the money went. So then I have an idea of how to budget. I feel like anybody listening to this, women need to know how to budget money. If you are not the breadwinner, you need to know how to budget money. I cannot tell you how many elderly couples I have been to their house, I've had as patients, and they don't know what to do once their spouse dies. They have no idea where anything is. They have no idea how to even manage the money. And a lot of the more privileged people, they have life insurance. And so it's not that they're not going to have money. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to spend the money that they have on the things that they need. So I think it's super important, even if it's the way that Shahnila was talking about, that it made her uncomfortable to have to budget her own spending, because it is uncomfortable to budget money. It's uncomfortable to pay for things. I mean, I feel uncomfortable buying the kids clothes. I was telling my husband the other day, like, I just spent $150 on pants for the kids. And he's like, okay. And I was like, no, it's so much money. Why do they take so much money? They're just going to make holes in it once they get it. I don't understand. But like, it makes you feel uncomfortable to spend the money on things that you need, but it is a necessary skill for the long run. Yeah. And like Seema was saying, like, we don't have experience in stocks and bonds and whatever else is out there, because we haven't been privileged to be able to have conversations with people about that stuff. And then the people that do, they're like, look at you like you're crazy because you don't know what any of that stuff is. But I need somebody who's going to break it down for us.
I know the person who sent that. I was like, you know what, my husband and I might be reaching out to you. Like, we're gonna need some information on this. And he was like, yeah, like I just started learning about this just like this year. And he's like, but I wish I would have known this 10 years ago, because it would have helped so much. We've already would have been so far ahead. And again, like I said, because age creeps up on you. You know, 10 years ago I was 25. You're not at all thinking about, retirement, and, you know, when your kids are old enough and to go to college and stuff like that. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute. You know, if we have 15 years left on the mortgage, then we'll be here for retirement or whatever. So it's like, it's crazy to think about those things just all of a sudden.
Yep.
You know, one thing that I realized was that, you know, I assumed, and I think many of us assume that, okay, well, our husband's the breadwinner, so he knows he's really good at financials. You know, we assume that they know just because they know how to budget doesn't mean that they know how to manage money.
That's exactly what somebody said. She's like,
my husband, when he had to take over, he didn't know anything about budgeting money. And he came to me a few times and asked me, can you just take over? Can you handle it? And I told him, no, I am not going to handle the money. You will figure it out and you will find a system that works for you, but I'm not going to handle it. And it took him a while to figure out a system that works for him. But now he has like the little notepad app that like nobody uses anymore on the computer. And he uses that to help him to tally in all of his stuff. And I'm like, man, you are really an old fart, aren't you?
You know, a lot of like girls though, growing up, were not told.
Sorry, Shahnila, go ahead.
I was saying that even if we know how to do that, and we can learn that, right? But the other stuff on how to make sure, like there was somebody that I was talking to, they recently got married, and they said that, you know, since I was little, my dad or our dad would take all of the kids' money, and part of it for Eid and anything else that we got birthday money, he would put some of it in a fund, like a mutual fund or something like that. What is it called? It's some kind of a mutual fund. So like almost like a savings, but actually it's you're putting it in where you have different stocks that they're managing. Mm-hmm. So since they were little, you know, it seems like, oh, you know, okay, $25 here, $50 here, $100 here. He would put it. And when the daughter grew up, that money was used for her college. That money was used for part of her down payment of her house. And we don't realize, and she just did it. They just, you know, every year, anytime they would get money, kids always get money from somewhere. And so they would put it in there, just little by little, like even if it's $20 a month, yeah. I think the minimum could be $10 a month. And they would just put it in there. And in 30 years, she had enough for a down payment.
Wow.
Or you could use it for education, and she could use that for that. And so that made us think about, okay, what are we doing for the future? You know, for
what
our
are
kids?
you doing? What are you doing, Shahnila? You guys?
So we that was something that we looked into. And then I think it's called Amana Mutual Funds.
Mm-hmm.
So they have things for minors. So we went ahead and set up something for all of the kids. And that was recently. But even before that, I was just thinking, I'm like, just things like leasing a car or buying a car. What's better to do in the long term? And we just think of something like, well, we need this is what we can afford. And there are so many like professionals out there who talk about, paying off all your debt, just being able to pay everything in cash. And you're just like, what? How can they do that? But there are so many ways. And I was learning about it, and I told my husband, did you know this? How come we didn't do this? I thought you were on top of this, and there's some things that we both didn't know. And I think part of it is our mindset is always like this scarcity mindset where we don't have enough money. We can't get this. It's always a negative, something negative about money, instead of thinking like, you know what? I want that. I want these things, like I was like, it's great to go on vacation and be able to go, but I don't want to stay in a 3-star hotel. I like 5-star, I want to go to that restaurant that, and there's nothing wrong with having nice things or wanting more, but am I going to go into debt for it, or am I going to strategically have money where I can budget for that somehow? And sometimes I think that's why a lot of women, they say that, well, I want my own money so then I can do the extra stuff. Yes, my husband provides the basic things, but if I want to upgrade, then I can do that on my own, and I don't have to feel bad about it. Because I remember at one time when I was like, you know what, we should not be buying regular eggs. I want to buy pasture raised eggs, and they're like $4.99, like $5.99 a dozen. And my husband's like, why are we in my house, we eat a dozen eggs a day. So, or, all the kids eat eggs. So we're spending all this money on eggs where we could just buy it for like way cheaper, like $2.99.
I have a chicken farm.
Yes.
That's what I want. That's what I want. That's the goal.
But I'm like, but it's so much more. And he's like, if ever, we just upgraded our grocery bill a couple $100.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was okay, but it was something else wasn't being met when I did that,
Absolutely. And something somebody had responded to was something that she wished she knew before she got married, was that men aren't knowledgeable at finances either, that they're not always the best at managing it. And that just reminded me about how nobody talks about it when you're a kid, right? You go through the whole school system, your parents talk to you for how many years about getting married, but nobody talks to you about the money aspect of it. And as women, a lot of times, especially in the culture, you grow up thinking, oh, my husband will take care of it. It's like, how would they even know? Nobody talks to them about it either. So right. It's like, that's so crazy.
And when I was getting married, when you were talking about this, I basically went to Pakistan. I did my shopping for my wedding. I took money with me, and I could pick out whatever outfit I want, and I got matching jewelry with it. And I remember my aunt calling my parents. I'm like, yeah, you know what? We saw this other jewelry that we don't have that kind, and we want that. Can you just send me like $10,000? And I had no money, like value of like how much that is. And there's no way that and that was just like for jewelry, right? And then like, I was just thinking now, I'm like, you know what? There's no way that I'm spending $10,000 in all of my kids' wedding combined. And this is the way that how much we spend at weddings. And I was like, there's no way, even if I can afford it, I don't even want to. We're going to the masjid.
And yeah, I think weddings are such a waste. I know that is an unpopular opinion, but I am not a fan of weddings. I don't like going to weddings. I didn't want a big wedding for myself. Like, I just find it to be so wasteful. Celebrate with your close family and friends and like a little dinner or something, but I'm not a fan of weddings.
I agree.
I find them so wasteful.
Yep, me too.
And like year after year, they just become
wedding,
extravagant.
It's the child's wedding. Let's see how they turn out to be.
Well, I know. I'm going to offer them a trip and see how that goes.
There's some people, because it's in our culture, it's like you have to do certain things.
Yeah.
And there are parents who are going into debt. They are borrowing money from everybody, everywhere, so they can meet that societal standard.
Like Samir and I begged to not have a wedding.
Yeah, nowadays the boys and the girls, they're going into debt. The parents aren't going into debt as much. It was our generation of parents who went into debt. This generation of kids, the parents are saying, okay, you want this, you pay for it.
Yeah.
In fact,
so
it's not
sad.
two. It's not the parents. It's the girl and the guy. So this was another question that was coming to my mind. The funny thing that I wanted to say was that I want a lot of money, but then I don't want to do the hard work to earn the money. So that is also one thing why the
I
money
don't
is
believe
not
you. I don't believe you. You do all kinds of hard work
You
all the
do,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
stop
but
that.
now I've started to see, right? Now I've started to work towards it, but like, come on, I'm going to be 40 in the next 2 years. Can you imagine if I started this work 20 years ago? Where would I be? Like, we would be cruising in a jet right now.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have the experience that you have
That's
now.
true. How could you be doing this stuff 10 years
Right.
ago? That wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
Nice try.
But coming back to the point, I've not all three of you. You've grown here. You've gone to school here. You've probably taken loans. You've probably paid off those loans. How does that work? Because I mean, all of my education was paid off by my mom. So I do not know how kids take care of that. And nowadays when the couples get married, they come with their set of debt, especially if they've gone to an engineering school or a medical school or something like that. And on top of that, they buy houses, and on top of that, they buy cars, and on top of that, they have big lavish weddings, and all of it they're doing with their own money. Of course, parents will pay for some part of it, but how is it working? Do you have an idea? What is it?
I don't know how people afford all that stuff, to be honest, because like I went to a state school for nursing, and I still owe nursing money. I still owe the school money. And my husband, he went to school for a few things, and so he owes money too. And we still can't figure out, like, unless we're always trying to figure out, like, how did these people afford this? How are they able to do that? They don't see, like, the profession that they have, they don't seem to be making a whole lot of money. How are they able to afford these things? You know, we're always judging people anyways.
More than judgment, I'm like,
loans and they pay interest, and they'll just keep refinancing, and you know, no one really owns anything. They're always using their credit card or taking loans out, you know.
Right. And you never know. You never know what's going on behind the
American
scenes,
way.
or who's getting help, or, you know, who was set up with a trust fund or something like that. You just never know. I mean, Samir didn't even finish school, and we're going to be paying a ridiculous amount on that every month, basically for the rest of our lives. We've been paying consistently since we got married, and we somehow owe exactly the same amount. So it's like,
yeah, that's how I feel too.
I don't know if you guys ever watched the Dave Ramsey show.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard about
a lot of
he's kind of mean about his stuff. I stopped watching him. He's kind of mean.
He's mean, but there's one thing that he had to call. He had callers call in, and then he was just saying that, you know, basically make smart money choices. And there's a lot of his stuff that is actually really good.
Yeah.
But some of it may not be in line with our faith. But a lot of it is. And that was one of those things, like, you know, you went to school for this, and now you're not even doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have to spend your whole life savings just to pay it off.
Exactly.
People do that. They'll get married for 10, 20, 30 years. They'll spend paying it off. And like, you know, alhamdulillah, I was just blessed that my dad paid for my college and my master's, and we just paid cash, so we didn't have to. And at that time it was probably cheaper anyways, but and I got some scholarship.
Be in so much debt otherwise. Like, we have to figure out a way where they can go to college and pay for their college. This is all the kind of life you want for them.
And I think I told my kids, I know they're young, but I'm like, you know what? I don't have money to sit. You're not gonna get a loan and just go to college. You're gonna have to save up so you can go to college. My son is in 7th grade, and he's like, you know, in the summer, you're gonna have to start a business or something, and you know, save some of it, because we have to do something.
And you know, and it's so hard.
Yeah.
It is so hard. My sister, who's 24, she just graduated. She paid her own way through. She was working 2-3 jobs and going to school full time. And it's so crazy too, because for the people who don't have to do that, who have somebody paying for them, they can just focus all their time on school. Like, she's going to school, she's going to work. She was doing Quran classes in the evening. So she's like doing all these different things, and then just paying, you know, every cent she had to school in the meantime. So it's just like, it's such hard work, and it's such a privilege to not have to think about that, to just go to school.
Because then you also have to pay
school.
for housing and whatnot if you're living somewhere else. I had like my mom paid for like half of our tuition because that's what she could afford. And then we had to work and we paid for everything. I worked in the summer and I worked during the regular semesters. I worked 20 something hours a week. I'd come home at like 3:00 in the morning and then have classes at 8:00. And that's just to cover like the little bit that we like, because I had loans and then I had my mom paying, and then I would have to cover the rest because it's just so expensive. It's unrealistic really to go to school unless somebody is paying it for you out of some kind of money. Then it's unrealistic to like work and pay it off at the same time for most people.
We think about Samir student loans all the time because it's like, it's just so insane. It's so insane the amount you pay every month and barely making a dent.
Yeah,
we should send our children to the Caribbean or back home Pakistan if they want to become doctors.
Right.
A lot of people, some people do that.
They do.
Yeah, they do. I know they do. That's why I'm saying like they're like how. Okay, if from a typical Desi parent's perspective, okay, just bear with me. If I push them into a career that they're not even interested in the first place, and then I tell them study that, which means take loans for that, because in a profession like medicine, either you're going to study or you're going to work. How are you going to manage all of it? It's really not possible. So what are we pushing them towards, really? A lifetime of debt?
Right. I mean, ideally entrepreneurship, but even then, if you want to, go to school to learn business and stuff, that's going to cost money too. So there's very little way around it unless they learn some kind of a trade.
I was listening to somebody and he was an entrepreneur and like just really, he has a lot of businesses, and he was saying that he interviewed somebody and he said that, what did you go to college? And he said, yeah, what did you study? Accounting. Is that what you're working in? And he said, no. And he goes, yeah, you don't go to, unless you're becoming like a specialist in something like law school, you have to go, but just a bachelor's, unless you don't really just go to college for that degree. You go for the experiences, you go for all the other stuff that comes with it.
Yeah.
Networking and all of that. And that's what because other stuff, like anything that like the work, the classes, nowadays, everything is on Google. There's free courses online. If you want to study, then you could do that, get a certification. And I feel like it's just changing. The paradigm is changing, and there's so many other options. Like if someone can make $100,000, not go to college, but have a certificate in cyber security, for example. They make more money than you don't need. I mean, you could just go and afterwards and they can pay for your college.
Right. But, I mean, what we did, Samir and I both like stopped going to school a little bit earlier and then just kind of worked our way up. I kind of went to school while I was already teaching in school. I was teaching at a daycare. Then I went to Islamic school, and I was a teacher's aide at first. And then I was going to school while I was working. And then he started off at a low level at his position and just kind of worked his way up. And now he's in a managerial position without going to school, totally not using the little that he got done for his degree. He was going to school for psychology. Now he manages a body shop. Nothing. There's nothing there that, that he's using from what he learned to where he is now. It just took time, effort, hard work. And he was able to, alhamdulillah, be successful in what he's doing because it's something he enjoys. He loves working with cars, and he loves working in that environment where it's not super formal and it's a sit down job where he's up and he's running around. And the crazier part is we now recently discovered that he's dyslexic, and that's why school was so difficult for him and why he just did not want to go. He didn't want to do it, but he's always been a really hard worker. So he's always found success in jobs where he could just work his way through. Yeah. So it's like, there are so many other options.
And I feel like the future is even, there's so many things now, job opportunities that they didn't even exist 10 years ago.
Right.
So
yeah.
By the time our kids are older, it's going to be so different. What they need, what's important, it's going to be so different.
Right. And what's available to them, because it's all changing.
I feel like college is going to be entirely different. I mean, so many colleges are already doing away with standardized test scores and things like that. So I feel like there's no reason, especially now when our kids are so young, to set them up specifically for college and things like that when we don't even know what that's going to look like in another 10 years.
Right.
And things are progressing so much more quickly than they used to. Before, things stayed the same for like 20 years and then they finally changed. That's not the way things work anymore. In 4 or 5 years, we're living in an entirely different world.
With flying cars, right?
Right.
I don't know about flying cars, but I have like more debt everywhere. Astaghfirullah.
Yeah.
But I think different types of education can set you up for different opportunities. And just like when you have those opportunities, and if you're able, I don't think money is a bad thing. Actually, I think it gives you so much freedom to do so many things where not everybody has the opportunity to do that, so if your kids want to go to on certain programs, the more money you have, and that's, I guess,
right.
That's part of money privilege, that then you have those opportunities,
Absolutely.
Where another child may not have that opportunity.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Like, robotics or STEM classes, they cost so much.
Yeah,
so much.
As homeschoolers, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
Like people think, oh, homeschooling, they're not spending much. We are spending way more than sometimes like private schools. Like, subhanAllah.
To make sure that they get a well-rounded experience.
Exactly. We take them to these expensive STEM classes and science engineering classes and all of that. I was looking up, there's this organization, it's from all the science museums that are all together, and they do different things in different parts of America, and you fly over there, so your ticket, so you can, there can be one kid and the parent, and the ticket is like for $1,000 or $2,000 for that one experience, learning from someone in that spot. I was like, are you crazy? Like, seriously, why would I do that? Like, why would I do that? But people do that. And if I had money, I would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we do talk about that, like celebrities and, how their kids end up doing all these amazing things. And it's like, yeah, of course they do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, if they want to be great piano players, they have literally the best piano players in the world just coming to their house and teaching them. And so they have so many opportunities right at their fingertips. So I do agree with that. And I guess sometimes those ideas cross my mind. But
do you guys talk to your children about the money aspect when they are interested in something or a few somethings? And then do you have that discussion with them about what is financially, I don't know, available to them?
Yeah.
But mine are older, so all the time. Yes.
Yeah. I use the word budgeting with them. When we go to the store, we have a budget, and a way that we do that is when we do have the budget for it, when they ask for things, I just get it for them. Like, okay, we have the budget. It's fine. We can get these things. And then when we don't, I can be like, hey, you guys, it's not in the budget this week. And then they believe me. They trust me because they know that if we do have it in the budget, I would definitely get it for them. Like I do want them to feel like they are a part of the family finances. And we do talk about, okay, daddy works really, really hard during the day. And, the amount of time that he works is directly impacts the money that we have to spend. And I sometimes go into more depth with it, you guys, like, when we don't have enough money, if we don't have the budget to do things, and that really means that daddy has to work harder, and he's, like it becomes a long-term thing. So we have to be careful and all of that. But yeah, we do talk about it often.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I think like sometimes we'll go to the store, and before I used to be like, oh, that's so much, we can't get that. That's too much. So now I changed it, and I'll say, you know what, let's save up for that. If you really want it, save up. Or, there's one thing we can have, either you can have this or that, because remember, we're saving up for that other thing. So we have a jar, and anytime somebody wants to contribute, and we just said that, like, if they're saving for something specific, they'll put that on there. And, just so they could see that, hey, I saved up, and then take that money out. Yes. And buy something, so they see that where it came from, or we spent 3 weeks or 1 month saving up for that.
That's true too, because growing up, like my mom tried to tried to teach us about budgeting and stuff, however way she could. She would, whenever we would get money, like on Eid or whatever, then she would always tell us to like put a third of it to sadaqah, and a third of it will go to savings, and then we can spend a third of it. But then there was never any like end goal. It was just like saving for just saving. And then the money that we have, we could just spend it whenever we wanted to. So I don't know that that specifically helped us with budgeting, but I do with my kids, like have a goal for them. Like, okay, right now they're saving up for a Nintendo Switch. I told them they have to save up half the money for the Nintendo Switch, and then we will put in the rest of it. And so they've been working hard. I told them if they kill a bug, because, you know, we have those giant water bugs down here. They're just so nasty. I told them if they kill a bug and they pick it up and throw it in the toilet or throw it in the garbage, then they get $1. And one of the twins is just so grossed out by it. He's like, I can't do that, Mom. You got to give me something else to do. But the other ones, they definitely go after the bugs that they see.
So last weekend or a couple of weekends ago, Medina, my oldest, she plays Roblox, and on Roblox they have Robux, and she actually spent $50 without telling us, because it's automatically attached to our credit card in order for her to be able to play with her cousins and stuff like that, where we have Xbox Live. And so when we brought it up, and she was like, huh, what? Like trying to play it off like she didn't know what happened, but we couldn't tell if it was genuine or if like she genuinely didn't really know what happened. Cause it does kind of pop up like, oh, do you want to purchase? And then yes or no, and then keep playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we discovered, like we checked the credit card statement, then we went into the Xbox history of what was purchased, and we saw, okay, it was $49.99 for her to get these little Robux, and you use the Robux to like dress your character and like such silly, ridiculous things. But we looked at each other, my husband and I, and we're like, okay, we're not going to make a big deal out of this. Like this is a one-time thing. She generally is a very respectful and thoughtful person, especially when it comes to money and stuff. So we know that this is not typically her behavior. So she's like, I didn't mean to, I didn't know, you know, like, right. Just, and we're not even saying anything. And we're like, you know, listen, at this time, it really wasn't a big deal because we have that money right now. So it wasn't a big deal, but just know that $50, one, is a lot of money. And two, especially for this particular thing, we would not spend $50 on this. This would not come from our money because this is not something that's necessarily important to us. If it's important to you, we can discuss ways for you to make money, you know, so that you can pay for it yourself. And we were both very proud of that conversation because initially the reaction would be like, what are you doing? No more Xbox for you. You know, so that was initially in my head, but like we kind of calmed each other down by making quick eye contact. We're like, what do we do here right now? And she was very grateful. And it was just like, okay, if this happens again, we're going to have to talk about your access to Xbox going forward. So we understand that, you know, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe you were just very, very tempted because mommy and daddy were out of the house and it came up and you wanted to dress your character, whatever the case might be. We're not asking you because we didn't want to put her in a position to lie. Like we're not asking you, whatever the case is, that was way too much money to spend. And moving forward, if something like this comes up, you should be spending your own money on this because this isn't something that we want to spend the money on, you know, family money on. And she's like, okay.
Very nice, like, very nice reaction. I am impressed.
Thank you. We were very proud. That was a good one. But, you know, it happens. And everybody is tempted at one time or another. So if we are going to say kids are part of the family and part of the family finances, then we have to sometimes just accept that they're going to make poor choices sometimes when it comes to money specifically.
I was going to say, so do I want to be rich or do I want to be richer? Richer!
Money. We should not be afraid to talk about money.
No.
Especially with the people that we love and the people that we care about.
All three of you have way more experience with money. Mashallah, tabarakallah. As I'm listening to it, I was raised by a single parent, but I swear she never told me to budget. It was my younger sister who shamed me into using my mom's money.
Oh my God.
I was even scarred by that. So I'm telling you, I'm 38. I'm still scarred by that memory. You know how careless I was? I was like in college in Pakistan and going to a private college. And I asked my mom, Mama, send me money. I want to buy a car. I'm getting a license here. And my mom was literally considering it. And my sister wrote me an email and she said, shame on you.
Now, my mom used to sit us down at the dining room table after she got a divorce and it was just her taking care of the house. She would like sit us down and we had this huge mirror and she'd get a dry erase marker and be like, this is how much money I make. This is how much it costs for the mortgage. This is how much it costs to buy food and blah, blah, blah. And like we paid for stuff because I was working from when I was like 14 years old, I was working. And so like we paid for stuff, but she was still like, you guys are spending too much money. You're not turning off the lights when you leave the room. And, and she would break it down. She was like, this is my bills. She would pull out all of her bills. Okay. This one, this is for this.
Yeah, I understand. See the personality. Like I am amazed at why my mother raised me like that. Like so oblivious. Like seriously. And it's not even her fault. Part of it is my fault. I'm like, come on. I was a thinking human being. Why did I just like think, okay, life is so like da 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 da. What is that called? Like yeah. And
Yeah, we were spoiled brats, basically.
I know it's
we were entitled. I mean, when I look back at before I got married, entitled, yeah. Like I could, my dad should have been like, if you want. I mean, I did work. I did work when I was 15. I worked when I was 18, but all that money was like spending money. I didn't save anything. It was just on stuff. And then even on top of that, I would want my dad to buy me stuff. So.
Yeah,
he didn't pay for gas or like my lunch or anything. He would still give me money for that. But, and I'm thinking back and I'm like, why did you pay for anything? If you could have said, if you want that, you know what? You want a futon for your dorm room? You want a TV for your, then you pay for it. Why are you, I'm not going to pay for that. That's extra. I'm already paying for the dorm room. So you should have, he should have said that. Like, that's one thing that, I told my dad afterwards, I'm like, I wish you never paid for stuff for me.
I used to have to it was like, okay, you got to go to school and how are you going to get there? What are you going to spend your money on? Are you going to spend it on a bus pass, a train pass? How are you going to get to school? You're going to buy a bike? And then that's how I would have to spend my money. Okay, got to get a train pass, but that means I have to get to that train stop and it's like this many miles away. Okay, got to walk from this time. And I was always running for the train because I was always late. But that was how I learned to budget money in that way.
Good. For my graduation, for my high school graduation, I got a car. And then I got a big graduation party with whatever money that I got from there. I wish it was a little bit different. I mean, at that time I didn't, I'm not going to be doing that with my kids.
Yeah. So my question is now, what type of jobs do we want our kids to be doing?
Whatever they want.
Yeah.
So we are safe. We're happy with whatever they want.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I feel like a lot of people put a lot of pressure on.
They want to live, right?
Yeah,
whatever their lifestyle is, they want to live.
Right. They have to be able to maintain that.
Yeah, like my son, he'll go to IKEA and he's like, yeah, I don't want to, he has very high standards. So basically, you want to be a millionaire. So whatever plans you make it for that, because that's what you want. And that's where I can help him reach that, where somebody else might, and another child might be like, well, I just need, the minimum. And then when they get there, and I remember my husband, he was that type where he's like, I don't need extra. I just need the minimum, just comfortable. And then when we had 4 kids and living in California, it's super expensive here. And he's like, I never thought this much wouldn't be enough. So it's just, I'm like, yeah, but you live here,
Plus so you started buying pasteurized eggs, Shahnila.
And
I had such like a unique.
And I had 2 home births. And that wasn't free. Yeah. So I had to, pay for that.
You were saying something, Seema.
I was just thinking, like, while she was talking, like, I had such a unique experience because so my childhood, there was a lot of chaos going on, right? My parents got divorced and married and divorced and like lots of things going on. I spent some time here and some time there. But one thing that I had gotten from it too was just make the most of what you have. Like there were times where we were getting furniture from the dumpsters, like we were getting things out and we are just making the most of it. And like through amidst all the chaos, when we had the least, honestly, was when we were the happiest, is when we had so much more fun. We were home playing games. We had so much family time that we didn't realize how little we had. And so like, literally, I remember there was a time that my mom and my aunt, who had just come from Guatemala, because she had just gotten divorced and she had 2 kids. And they came home just laughing hysterically, carrying a TV that they just pulled out of somebody's garbage. And the TV ended up not working. And they both got hurt in the process and they were like, whatever. But it was just a lot of fun. And those were the most fun times. So I think that really instilled in me of just like, it doesn't matter how much you have, just make the most of what you have. So if you don't have enough, downsize. If you don't have enough money to maintain your lifestyle, downsize. If you still don't, downsize some more, make adjustments, figure it out, because you can still be happy and live a completely full life with very little. So I think that I'm very grateful for that experience. There's a lot of things that I did not love about my childhood, but that I definitely am very grateful for. That perspective allows me to just not worry about it. And that's more what I meant to earlier. It's not like, oh, the money will come. I don't care if it doesn't come, I'll figure it out.
That's an interesting perspective too, because not everybody that's listening to this is going to have spouses that are breadwinners and, they're single parents and stuff like that. So that's a really good perspective, that you as a child didn't feel that you were lacking.
No. I mean, boxed mac and cheese with cut up hot dogs was our dinner.
Oh yeah, man.
Stuff like that.
That's still the best dinner though.
The best. We loved it.
That's still the best dinner though. SubhanAllah, it's that thing that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you with wisdom of certain things at a certain age early on in life, like you say that Allah places, if the things that you run after, Allah places it here between your 2 eyes. And then what happens is if there's even Jannah around you and you're just focused on their faqr over here, right here, then you're just focused on your faqr, your poverty, right? You're like counting the things that you don't have, and you miss out everything that you can enjoy. SubhanAllah. It's being from, so I think I'm very scared of poverty though. I really am, because I saw my mom work very, very hard. And like I told you before, she never, ever once said no to anything that I wished to have. She sent me to the best of schools. She sent me to, she did everything humanly possible that she could do. And I remember living in shabby houses, and I remember living in neighborhoods that were not safe, and I remember living in houses that had one room, and in that room was the kitchen, and in that kitchen was the bathroom. Can you imagine like those tiny spaces? And I think of it and I'm like, and we were happy, like, because it was just like mama, me, and my sister, and alhamdulillah. But I don't want my children to be at that spot. I don't want them to see that. I don't want them to even, ever live that kind of a life. I never even mentioned to them any of such thing. I don't mention them my childhood. They asked me, oh, don't you miss the place where you grew up? I said, no, I don't. Actually, it was just last week, I think. I said, people miss places where they want to go back to. I don't want to go back to that point.
Yeah.
I'm very happy where I am, and I want to see you all happier in a more safer place. Of course, I want you to be content with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bless you with. So yeah, with money, there's fear. For me, there is fear. Money equals to fear for me, in every sense, good sense, bad sense, whatever. SubhanAllah. And I was going to say this, we never touched on the topic of women who suffer because money is taken away from them as a source of punishment, or as a source of, demeaning them or their position as wives or as homemakers.
Or if you have a husband who wants to be totally in control. Like I know women who don't know literally how much money they have, how much money their husband makes, what bills are being paid. They have literally not a single idea of any of the finances in their house.
Scary.
Yeah. And like they don't even have access to it.
Right.
They're not allowed to see it is the other aspect of that.
That's financial abuse though.
That is.
A lot of women don't get divorced for years and years because of the financial abuse.
Yeah.
That fear is instilled in them that
Yep.
you are not going to do anything outside. Like, for example, this whole series I did with another sister, and what came out of it was women don't leave marriages until their children are able to earn, because then they leave on the heads of their children that now this he or she is going to provide for me. Now they're capable, they can take care of me, they will have a shelter, and I will live with them, and then I can leave this abusive marriage.
Yeah.
Before that, they don't even consider it, and they tell their children that this is what I'm counting upon that you're going to do. So
why don't you think those women work on doing something on their own, or they're not allowed to?
they say that majority of them say that they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to have friends, they're not allowed to have cash on them. If cash is found on them, it will be like
That's so sad.
one of the sisters who paid for the courses, the 7 keys of development that I did, she had a separate hidden account, and I told her you can come for free, but subhanallah, she sent me $100. And she said, oh, I'm not going to send it to you through a bank account because then my husband will find out that I have an account. So I'm going to send it to you through another way. And she tried whatever she could try. And I was like, why are you going through so much trouble? I'm giving it to you for free. but like, that's the kind of sense. And she was and like you said, there are women who are working towards, and she said she was paying towards the course because someday she's going to do whatever she finds strength in and wisdom in an education, and she wants to train herself to be able to do it. So yeah, there are those kind of women who will find ways to do, because it's just the mindset that their husbands have. It's not that they're evil or cruel, they just can't see the other perspective. And so you can manage with that kind of a marriage. You can still manage and work around that kind of a marriage, but then there's this total abusive as well. Like,
you know what I used to do, guys? And Samir's going to hear this and find out. But for a while, when I was going to go grocery shopping in person, I would like cut a few things off the grocery list and then just take back $20 cash at the checkout. And then like over time, it would just build up. So I'd have a couple $100 in my pocket. So again, if I wanted to buy a few extra things, like just like totally unnecessary, dumb things, I could, and nobody would know. It was just like a little win for myself. And like, he never says anything to me, the poor guy. He doesn't like come down on me anymore ever since we had that one conversation. So it's so silly and pointless, but it just made me feel better because I could just do things without him knowing.
I think it's helpful. Yeah, I think it's helpful to have the separate account, or the separate money that is yours. So my husband and I, we have our joint account, but then we both have our own separate accounts. And even like, I mean, because I used to work anyway, so then like some of my money, half my money would go into that, and then it would go into like savings and all these other things. But like, just to have your own account, even now, just it is just gives you that mental calmness, I guess, because like the money is a security. It's a security that you feel, even if there's like $100 there, you're like, man, if something happens, I'm not going to be completely screwed. I have $100 to my name, it's so silly, because it's like, what is $100 going to really get you, right? But but it's a mental thing though, and it's the same thing when you're talking about the lady who has her own separate account, or whatever it is that she has her money. It's a mental thing that makes you feel, I don't want to even say content, but it's just making you feel calm about the situation, that you're not completely out of control in it.
Control. So this is not a new phenomenon. I think our mothers, great-grandmothers, great-great-great-great-grandmothers, probably even Hawa alayhi salam, if she had some sort of money, I don't know, probably we all want a sense of ourselves, right? The autonomy.
Right.
You already spoke about it, subhanallah, that the sense. We were on a trip, and we saw this antique shop. This was last year, and I wanted to buy stone I don't know what stone was, a stone ring. I just wanted to buy that for the sake of buying it. I don't even wear rings. You will never see me wearing jewelry, but I like jewelry. And I couldn't. And at that point, I was so bad at myself. I was so angry with myself. Like, why can't I just go ahead and splurge? When I go through airports, you know what I think? When I have my money, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to buy this. And I know it's on the triple price, but I'm just going to buy this because I want to buy this. SubhanAllah. And I told my husband, and my husband was like, Bechara, poor guy, may Allah have mercy on him. He's like, you are mad at me without even telling me. Take me there, man, woman, I will buy it with you. I was like, no, I needed to buy it. I wanted my money to buy it. Like, I went on this whole rant of why do I need to think twice about, but then the question arises, now that I think of it, and then I thought of it for a very long time, I thought of it, is it nafs? Is it just me talking and wanting out of my desire? And if it is that, then alhamdulillah, I'm not making that much money, because God knows what havoc I was going to bring upon my family, what the credit card debt that I would bring, subhanallah. But is it because I want that autonomy? I want to be in control of something. I want to own something and say, you know what? I was not answerable to anybody.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it is a control thing, because I think it has to do also with like the society not valuing the work that moms do. And so you feel like whatever you do at home, you're not in control of because you have to do it. And so that is a way that we feel like we can have control, is if we're able to go out and spend without looking at the price tag. But it's all a mindset thing though, because like what moms do is valuable, and it's just that nobody's putting a price tag on it right now. Nobody's paying you to teach them. I mean, if they were, you'd have your own money right now, you know, because you're teaching all your children different grades, different grade levels. At the same time, you're handling everything. You're cooking, you're cleaning, you're handling all these other things, and you're not getting like it's not reciprocated with money, and so it doesn't feel like it's real.
That's true. Shahnila, you said something yesterday in the conversation. I wanted you to bring that up again, if you remember.
Well, one thing I wanted to say, I don't know if I brought this up before, is that just like religiously, and I think what I grew up thinking too, is that, you know, your husband's money is your money and his money, and your money is your money. You don't have to share it. Right. And I feel like now that we live in the society where both contribute, and I feel like the husbands rely on the wives' income too. And like, well, we're in this together, you know? And like we used to have a joint account and my own account. And then when I stopped working, then I just put everything in the joint account and we just had that. And then I'm like, why did I do that? Like, if I could go back, I mean, yeah, if I could go back, I wouldn't have paid for anything. Seriously, I would have kept that money aside for just me, because I don't know when I would need it in the future. Yeah. Like if it was a phone bill, if it was like electricity, like I wouldn't contribute. I know most people would do. I wouldn't, because I know you could do it. So I wouldn't have contributed that money just because I'm like, oh yeah, I want to contribute. Why? You don't have to. Why are you?
I think that's a conversation that needs to happen like early on in the relationship. Exactly. I mean, and realistically, before you get married. Yeah.
Right. And that time I didn't mind. I wasn't being forced to. I was just like, oh, okay, you know, but I didn't realize it until all of it was gone. Then I'm just like, okay, I just spent it all. Like, why? You know, and at a point where we needed it to, you know, so where we were in a bind and we needed mine, you know, but I was like, I didn't have to, you know, maybe things could have been differently, you know, done differently, but you know, Allah does everything for a reason. So out of that, I learned so much about just valuing money, which I didn't do that before, you know? So, you know, everything is a blessing, and at whatever time things happen, it happens for a reason. The realizations that we have, it happens at the best time.
Mm-hmm.
Alhamdulillah for that. Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. I don't know. I enjoy the conversation. I don't know if the listeners will enjoy it or not.
Well, we have one person listening right now, so thank you for being here.
I mean, this is such a broad topic. I'm sure listeners can contribute and give us their feedback on their take.
Right, because it's just the four of our perspectives, but there are a lot of other relationship dynamics that are much different than ours.
Absolutely.
One thing I would say is just, I mean, communicating your needs and like Seema said, talking to your spouse if you are feeling that they are, I don't want to say being controlling, but it kind of feels that, right, micromanaging the financials and you don't like it, then you should talk to them about it. I don't want to say if you're not handling the financials, if you don't know how to budget, you got to learn how to budget money. It is important whether you have a spouse and you guys die together holding hands or not, you still should know how to budget money. It's super important. Super important skill to know.
You know what's really important, just for our kids? If we are providing a certain lifestyle for our kids, that's what they're used to. Mm-hmm. And I think Islamically, you should look for somebody who can provide that same thing for you. A lot of us will, I think this may have happened to me, where I was like, oh, I don't care. I don't need a lot either. I just want you. I'm just,
I went for, I care a lot about the money.
Where, you're just like, yeah, it doesn't matter. But then later on you realize, I'm like, oh, you know what? You were used to a certain lifestyle.
Right.
And that didn't matter. You didn't realize it until it was gone.
Right. Your minimums are different. The minimum that you will take is different.
Regardless, when you get married, it's a different story. Like I said, mom never questioned me spending, right? So I was into, in my bachelor's, I was like into, oh, there's a new restaurant opening, let's go to the opening of that restaurant. There's a new restaurant opening there, let's go to there. Blah, blah, blah. And when I got married and I did not know how to cook, and I told my husband, okay, let's go out, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to eat burnt food. Okay, I'm not taking you to a restaurant. So yeah, and then I was like, oh, this phone came out and that phone came out and you should get that one. And he's like, flip phone.
I know sometimes I think my in-laws think I'm such like a wild child. Like I just don't care about anything, and they're a little bit more posh and like scale and stuff. And so like they talk about things like I don't know. I'm such a crazy. My kids run around barefoot. Like,
right. Yes.
I don't know. It just doesn't mean as much to me. So I do something like, what's the word for it? Jungly.
Come on. I will fight for that. This is my friend and my fellow homeschooler, Nazia. She's been listening to us and she says, it's almost, thank you so much. Such an intimate talk on this topic, really informative, and enjoyed it. Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. Really enjoy how you guys talk about all the aspects of the topic with all humor. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for listening.
And she's in Chicago.
Oh, Chicago.
Okay. Jazakallahu khair. I think we should wrap up.
Yes.
People listening, we really like talking to each other.
Well, but thank you for joining us and being a part of the conversation. And if you are here from Instagram after giving your input, we greatly appreciate it. It's always a huge part of our conversation. So continue to give us your input on all of our topics. And also remember to like our Instagram page and follow the Instagram page and the YouTube page. Make sure you're subscribed so that you know whenever we are live.
Right. Yep. Give us a like on this video.
But keep it coming. If you're here, be sure to subscribe.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Assalamu alaikum.